Welcome, everybody. We really can pack a house. I'm pretty pleased about that. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Victoria Morales. I'm the Executive Director here at Quality Housing Coalition. We are so happy you are here on this gorgeous night. I hope you enjoyed the harpist. Her name is Kate Patterson, and she's incredible. So this is a really exciting night for all of us here at QHC, and we can't wait to share with you what we've been up to this past year, because it's been pretty incredible. And I want to just share with you our core beliefs before we get started here tonight, so you can see why we're doing what we're doing. We're guided here by the belief that we absolutely can end poverty in Maine. And the way to do that requires prioritizing two foundational necessities. One is stable housing, and two is financial stability. As you may be able to imagine, without having a home or knowing that you have enough money to feed your children every day, the need to survive takes precedence over the ability to address healthcare needs or pursue educational goals you may have or professional goals you may have. Simply put, you will hear stories with this theme tonight, that having stable housing and a pathway to financial stability leads to dreams, leads to actualized goals, and to opportunity. And the absence of those two things leads to day-to-day crisis, and it is nearly impossible to move forward in any direction. So tonight, we are here to celebrate and recognize the success of our pilot program we launched in 2023 called Project Home Trust. The goal of Project Home Trust is to create a pathway towards financial stability for single mothers and their children. In our pilot year, this past year, we supported 20 single moms and their 33 children in Maine. Each and every participant had experienced homelessness and poverty, and through Project Home Trust, they have three things. One, stable housing. Two, direct cash assistance of $1,000 a month for 1 year with no restrictions on how they spend their money. And three, and very importantly, access to a community of support and learning resources. I am so proud of what each program participant has achieved in only 1 year. And I'm grateful to you all for being here tonight. I'm grateful to our QHC Board of Directors, our staff, our donors, and to tonight's sponsors for bringing this bold vision to life. And I'd just like to name our sponsors because it's so important to have our community supporting this program tonight. Thank you to Acorn Engineering, Androscoggin Bank, Evernorth, Genesis, Mascoma Bank, M&T Bank, PK Management, Redfern Properties, Reveler Development, The Styled Home, which created this beautiful set right here, Vitalius Real Estate Group, and Thompson, Bowie, and Hatch, LLC. So thank you all to our sponsors. Now, I could go on for a long time about this program, and those who know me, I can do that, but I'm not gonna do that, because the best way to share the impact of this program is by listening to the people who participated in it. And so to kick off this evening, in the next hour, we'll be sharing an 8-minute film featuring 3 of last year's program participants, followed by key data points from our year-long randomized control trial study. And the program will conclude with a panel of program participants, staff, and community members. Tonight will be rich in stories, and I want you to think about this throughout the hour. Each woman's story is unique, and it's powerful in its own way. Stories like these, though, they're universal. You have stories like these in your own family and friend groups. These are stories about people trying to find a safe home, enough money to live, and a sense of belonging. So as you sit here tonight and watch this short film, as you learn about our program results and listen to our panel discussion, I want you to think about a few things. Is there someone in your life who would have benefited from a program like this? This could be a family member, a dear friend, or just someone you had a memorable encounter with. Think on it as you listen, and at the end of the program, we'll revisit this question. There are pens and index cards that you all have access to, and if you don't have one of our staff members can bring it to you. And in the meantime, thank you, and enjoy the film.
Ce n'est pas seulement l'argent, mais c'est la volonté d'avancer, d'apprendre. Parce que, vous savez, vous êtes comme une phare. Vous voyez les phares des bateaux? Vous êtes comme ça pour vos enfants. Ce programme, c'est comme un second phare pour toi, mais aussi pour tes enfants. Donc c'est comme, on va dire, tu es dans le noir et tu as une lumière, une porte de secours, et tu passes et tu te dis « Waouh !» Pour moi, c'est comme ça que ce programme est. Et j'espère que ce programme pourra continuer pendant des années et des années.
Project Home Trust is a guaranteed income pilot program. It's the first of its kind in Maine. The mothers receiving direct cash assistance, we don't specify what they need to use it for. It's just giving them the cash, and we believe that they use it the best way that it would serve them. I'm Peace Mutesi. I'm the Project Home Trust Manager. I came to Maine in 2021. I am one of the single mothers that were housed through Project Home. I was constantly communicating with Quality Housing Coalition because they're always checking in with the residents, and that's when I got to address the benefits cliff with them. And once they came back to me with the opportunity to be part of the program and develop it, I couldn't say, I was like, this is what I want to do. The program is so dear to me because I went through a lot of what the moms on the program went through, and what they have right now is what I wish I had at that time. It hits somewhere so close that I want to keep it going for the rest of the moms.
Je suis arrivée du Sénégal. J'ai vécu à l'hôtel pendant 1 an avec mon fils et ma fille. Chaque matin, quand je me réveillais, je me posais toujours les mêmes questions. Que vais-je faire de ma vie? Comment vais-je m'occuper des enfants? Et un jour, Quality Housing m'appelle pour me dire qu'on a décidé de faire un programme pour aider les mamans célibataires. Pour moi, je pensais que c'était juste 1 mois. Mais quand ils m'ont dit 1 an, je me suis dit, vous êtes sûrs? Et c'est là qu'elles m'ont dit oui. Je dis waouh. Le premier chèque que j'ai reçu, j'ai acheté des habits pour les enfants et j'ai acheté quelques meubles pour la maison parce que j'en avais pas au départ. Et vous savez ce qui est difficile, donc mes horaires concernant l'école, ça n'allait pas avec certaines crèches. Alors j'ai utilisé cet argent pour trouver un babysitter. Donc on va dire que c'est grâce à ces ressources, j'ai eu la possibilité de faire le training, d'avoir ma certification en banque.
I was living with the support of a women's recovery residence with my daughter. And when I entered into recovery and had the supports around me to continue my degree, I decided that was what I wanted to do, is keep working towards that goal. I graduated from the women's recovery residence and was looking at having to stop pursuing my education and obtain full-time work to be able to meet our needs. They had referred me to the Project Home program with the Quality Housing Coalition, and also suggested that I applied for the Project Home Trust program. At the time, it was a really big period of uncertainty for me, and the Project Home Trust really changed that trajectory by supporting me in pursuing those goals. So now I got my associate's degree, and I'm able to enter into the career field of my choice.
Naza couturière, natangi classe nasala coupe couture, pe na université nake kosala modélisme. Ça fait un temps naki komi retrouver awa na États-Unis, soit ya ba situation moko oyo peut-être na ko partager yango boité. Nazalaki moko oyo nazalaki na posa ke na banda ko sala ba activité na ngande na banda ko sala ta nazalaki na pays. Lokwa nazalaki na atelier de couture, nazalaki pe na posa ni na komi awa pe na continuer métier wana. Mais na banda ko mona issue te, pourquoi? Parce que ba matériel na biso ezalaka trop cher. Surtout au moment où Nabandaki Moussala, c'était au même moment que GIA Kotikanga, et c'était au même moment que le programme P Bandaki. Donc, comme je disais, franchement, Naza vraiment émotionnel pour ces programmes ici. Je tiens à remercier.
The ability to meet our needs on the spot was just one of so many things that really worked for me with the program. Instead of working weekend shifts, I can show up for my daughter as her mom. Now she's in gymnastics and she absolutely loves it, and I get to watch that and help her grow. It feels good to know that she gets to have a starting chance because now we do have stability, we do have ground under our feet.
C'est vrai que ce qui est bien, c'est d'avoir un endroit où vivre, de quitter l'hôtel, de se dire je peux préparer parce qu'à l'hôtel on ne peut pas préparer. Alors que quand tu as ta maison, tu peux préparer ce que les enfants aiment, ce que tu aimes. Avec ce programme, je peux dire que les enfants sourient tout le temps parce que j'essaie tout le temps de leur faire plaisir et moi je me sens beaucoup mieux, donc moins de stress.
Grâce à programme oyo eyaki vraiment ko réaliser oyo ezalaki rêve nanga eza vraiment facilité en tant que moi naza pe nano mineur esengeli ko assister ye na makambo na ye nyonso ya classe et tout et puis na business mais namekaka toujours ko répartir batemps na sens que eza na bajour mosusu nazalaka oyo naza awa peut-être ozalaka pe ensemble pe na ye. D'ailleurs, raison pour laquelle nayebisaki bino na départ ke natie machine moko na ndako natiki machine moko na ndako de façon ke nazalaka mingi présent ntango ye pa azali.
The mothers get to meet monthly for cohort meeting and they get to share resources, we bring in different people to talk to them.
À chaque fois qu'on avait ces réunions chaque mois, j'ai remarqué en fait qu'on était toutes en train d'évoluer.
We had somebody that came in that would talk about parenting, and she brought a lot of resources in for child development. We also had a mindful self-defense class. Those skills were really helpful, and the workshop itself was a lot of fun, and it really connected us. The continued support after the program ends is also a relief too, to know that it's not just ending. You know, we can meet with somebody that can help us do our budgeting and the financial planning.
Finance oyo ezouta na kati na programme oyo ezosala ete eleka na koaccompagner projet oyo moto aza nango. C'est pour cette raison na bi eza vraiment trop important. Na tenir vraiment ya ko remercier bino et puis na kosenga ke programme oyo eleka kozala oyo ko continuer parce que kozala femme seule eza eloko moko oyo eza facilité.
My name is Allison, and I recently graduated from Southern Maine Community College with my Human Services Associate's degree.
Kombo na ngai Mbala, naza célibataire na mwana moko, naza modéliste et styliste et puis couturière.
Je m'appelle Kumba Hollande, donc là je peux dire que je suis fière d'avoir mon diplôme en certification en banque et un diplôme américain aussi. Donc on va dire que je suis une maman épanouie maintenant.
I'd like to thank Wind Media for creating that film and for all of the participants in the film. It really was a wonderful experience, and we're so glad to present this to you. For folks who haven't been able to make it tonight, this film will be on our website for you to share with community members. For those of you who know me, you know that I've spent the last few decades studying local, state, and federal policies around poverty, mostly to learn the legal mechanisms that trap people and to discover the barriers and work on necessary reforms. And one of the barriers that keeps coming up, and you heard Decky talk about it in the video, is the benefits cliff. It's an insurmountable barrier, particularly for single moms, and here's why. And I'm going to give you a real life example of one of our residents who experienced the benefits cliff. A person who experienced financial insecurity as a child, as an adult, having 4 children, 2 with special needs in school and 2 who were preschool. She experienced interpersonal violence in her home, was evicted as a result of that, not her fault, but then had an eviction record, and so had difficulty getting housed. She's living in her car with her children, and I just want you to imagine what that feels like to get your kids ready for school in your car after spending the night with them. I also want you to imagine what it might be like to go to their IEP meetings to advocate for their educational needs in that school. This is what this mom was going through. So in this particular case, QHC was able to secure housing for her despite her eviction record, but she had no income yet to pay the rent. And there's a very long waiting list for Section 8 housing vouchers, so she was unable to get one. She sought out public assistance to pay for rent, food, and diapers. She had to attend appointments each month and show receipts every time to prove that she was spending the money on the right things. If she made a mistake, for example, paying for gas before paying for your rent, you're penalized on programs like these. Sometimes you lose those benefits for that month. As soon as you get a job, and as you can imagine for this particular mom, it was a night shift because she needed to cobble together folks to stay over at her house so that she could go to work. Her earnings are not only not enough to pay for the apartment and the food they need, but they make her ineligible for receiving benefits altogether. And that is the crux of this benefits cliff. And what it does is it puts people at risk, putting her children at risk of becoming unhoused again because she cannot afford the rent unless she gets another job, which in that case would take her away from her family even more, causing more stress on this small family. So it's an impossible situation that thousands of single mothers are facing. And the consequences of allowing the benefits cliff to exist, and it is a policy decision that we allow it to exist, is that recipients of public assistance have a devastating choice, deciding not to pursue their educational or career goals, which would be better for them in the long term, because they and their children could fall deep in crisis, becoming unhoused, not being able to afford their basic needs in the short term. It's a systemic trap. And in designing Project Home Trust with our residents, this was top of mind for us, and we aimed to create a solution to the benefits cliff while also following the social science research of Brené Brown around worthiness and belonging, which are 2 things that are central to happiness and the ability to thrive. We also were very cognizant of one of the findings that's the biggest barrier to thriving, which is shame. So as we worked with our residents to examine the existing social safety net of government assistance programs, largely the federal welfare system called Temporary Aid to Needy Families, TANF, and Maine's General Assistance Program called GA, we found that the underlying assumptions of feelings of recipients in these programs were, in fact, unworthiness, exclusion, and shame. So with Project Home Trust, we set out to test an alternative to the shame-based government assistance programming, that alternative being a trust-based program. And we provide low-income single mothers with $1,000 in cash, as you heard, and they decide completely how to use it. And guess what? Trust works. And so I'm so pleased to share with you the results of our study, our year-long study, and the key indicators of the pilot program. Next slide. And you heard some of this in the video. But on financial security, overall, the question was asked of every participant quarterly: how well are you managing financially these days? And for this program, 68% reported improvement, up from 5% at the start of the program. Next slide. On basic needs, and the question was, in the past 7 days, how difficult has it been for your household to pay for usual household expenses, such as food, rent, car payments, medical expenses, and so on? 74% reported improvements in ability to handle basic needs. This is up from 21% at the start of the program. Next slide. On emergency expenses, suppose you had a $400 emergency expense that you had to pay. How would this impact your ability to pay your other bills this month? 37% reported improvement in the ability to handle that kind of emergency, up from 5% at the start of the program. Next slide, please. Looking at the financial outlook, sort of your future aspirations, how are you going to feel in 1 year? This was significant. How do you think your household's financial situation will be compared in 1 year to now? 57% reported improvement and feeling optimistic about their financial future, with 95% in the last quarter feeling very optimistic about their future situation in 1 year from now. Next slide. So a few other data points that you saw in the video as well, that 89% of the children reported being very happy. And I think that's something that we have to really think about, that this program, guaranteed income programs, direct cash assistance programs, assist the entire household, including the children. Final slide. So these results are striking. And one thing we know, because we pair these results with stable housing supports, that 95% of our mothers maintain their housing throughout our program. So we haven't talked too much about, we've talked about the direct cash assistance, but I want to stress how important it is that we included a community aspect and a building community aspect to the Project Home Trust program. We hoped that this would be a critical component that could counteract the isolation that mothers felt when they were managing their crises alone. And we were so pleased that our participants strengthened these community bonds, meeting outside of the events, relying on each other for childcare, advice, caring about each other when they fell sick or were in need of help. We may be bold enough to say that this is, in fact, a point that we need to study in the future control trials, because happiness is challenging to study, but we heard it every day and we saw it in the smiles of our children. So we'll be looking forward to how to measure that in the 2024 cohort, starting at the end of this month. So now we're moving on to the panel presentation. This is the most exciting moment of the presentation, and I'm going to introduce our moderator. She's a role model of mine, a friend, and my Speaker of the Maine House when I served in the legislature. Two-term Speaker of the Maine House of Representatives, Sarah Gideon. Sarah remains dedicated to improving access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity by continuing her work to lift families out of poverty. Sarah spent her years in public service working with both Democratic and Republican governors and during times of divided government. Her legislative focus included bringing people together to reduce healthcare costs, expanding access to reproductive health care, improving education and training for families living in poverty, and tackling the opioid crisis. She lives in Freeport, Maine with her husband Ben and their 3 children, and I welcome Sarah onto the stage. And I invite our panelists up as well.
So as we start, I just want to remind my fellow panelists to make sure that your microphone is on. And good evening, everyone. We're going to start with an introduction from each of our incredible panelists, women who are here tonight. I'm going to ask everyone, starting with Peace, to just briefly introduce yourself, your connection to Maine, and your connection to Project Home and Project Home Trust.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Peace Mutesi. I am the Project Home Trust Manager, and I came to Maine in 2021, like you had in the video. I'm a single mom, over 7-year-old, and I was lucky to be housed through Project Home when I first got to Maine. And oh my. It's a long story, but I'm trying to wrap it up in the introduction here. But I did get housed through Quality Housing Coalition, and then in constantly talking to them about my next steps, what I wanted to do, and what I was going through at the time, the struggles that I was facing, because they're always shaken. You always have somebody to talk to from Project Home. I was able to get. I talked to Lucas, who's here, the Project Home manager, about my challenges experiencing the benefits cliff when I started working. And I was asked to help co-design the program. And now here I am managing the program and seeing other single moms thriving as well.
Allison.
Hi, my name is Allison Edwards. You might recognize me from the video up there. I moved to Maine when I was 18 years old, and my daughter was born here in Portland in 2020. And I was introduced to the Quality Housing Coalition and Project Home through the women's recovery residence that I completed, and the director referred me to apply, and I was shocked that I actually was able to participate.
Thank you, Allison. Zainab.
Good evening. I'm Zainab Hijazi. I'm from Beirut, Lebanon. I moved to Maine in 2022, November, with my 2 kids. I have my PhD on French literature, and I begin a new life. Today I'm a supervisor in Maine Health. I'm very happy to be here, and I don't believe.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Hugh. I am the Economic and Opportunity Director for the City of Portland. I got connected with Project Home Trust through Peace, who I met at a guaranteed income event, and I heard her story and I was just like, there's something there. Quality Housing Coalition has been an intricate part in some of the programming that we have in our office, and I am a product of what a possible recipient could have achieved through Project Home Trust, and I'm just honored to be here with all of you ladies.
Thank you, Melissa. And my name is Sarah. My dear friend Victoria already introduced me, but my connection to Maine is that this is home. It is the place where I've been fortunate enough to raise my 3 children in a community that takes care of each other and cares about each other. And through my work in my hometown of Freeport, in the state of Maine, and through the state of Maine, have been able to build steps that allow families to have tools to lift themselves out of poverty. And my enduring belief in this work is that every person deserves dignity, and that we need to trust each other, and we need to trust that parents, and especially moms, know what is best and can make their own decisions for their own families. Excuse me. So with that, we're going to allow each of the participants to share some really personal stories with you all, and we're going to start with Peace tonight. So Peace, as you mentioned, you co-developed Project Home Trust, and this was based on your own experiences. Wondering if you would be willing to share a little more about those personal experiences and why your work with Project Home Trust is so important.
Where do I start from? So, like I said, when I arrived in 2021, I was not able to work. As an asylum seeker, I had to rely on public assistance. But I just want to share one specific story that every time that I think about my beginning in Maine comes to mind. And it was one morning, I think it was in January, end of January. It was snowing, and my son was 3 at the time. I was at the family shelter, and I was asked to go to general assistance. So, of course, it was during COVID, so we had to line up in the cold outside. I didn't have the right gear, sweaters for me or my son. And I remember standing in the line, in a long line, waiting to be assisted. And my son was freezing, because winter was new to us. And then I walked up to the window and asked the lady at the window, could you please let my son stand at the doorway so that he doesn't freeze? And she said, I'm sorry, we can't do that. It's just not possible. Everybody has to stand outside. I looked at my son. His lips had started cracking, and they had started bleeding. And then I turned to a stranger who tapped my shoulder, and he said, I have a car in the parking lot. Why don't you give me your son so that I could warm him up? And I got so confused. I was happy that somebody offered something, but I was also scared because this is a stranger. I didn't know if I should choose between standing in the line with my son in the freezing weather or let my son go off with a stranger in the car. I decided to let the stranger have my son, because at least he was going to be warm. And I stayed in the line. I kept looking around the parking to see if the car was still there, if my son was safe. And I couldn't concentrate on the questions that were being asked at the window. And the lady kept yelling at me, saying, hey, you need to listen to me. You need to give me the information that I'm asking for, because we don't have the time to stay here waiting for you. But how could I have the space to even think about the questions or the answers to what she was asking when I wasn't sure if my son was safe or not? But then we went through that, and then we had to, we found a place to stay. We received the vouchers. I was so happy that things were working out well for me. I stayed at a hotel in South Portland at the time. And then I realized that the folks that I was staying with did not speak English, so I was able to really advocate for myself better. And within 3 weeks, I managed to find Quality Housing Coalition and got housed. And then I decided to go back to that very hotel and volunteer to teach students and their mothers English the best way that I could. And during that time that I volunteered and received SNAP and TNF and general assistance, I was also able to get connected with Gateway Community Services. that I volunteered with, because I had to show that I would, to qualify for TNF, I had to show that I was volunteering with an organization and not myself alone. So thank you, Gateway, for giving me that opportunity. But then, once I got my work authorization, I got hired right away by Gateway. And I was so excited that I could now make money, I could now do the job that I wanted. I was already in the role, I was already connected with the organization and knew the staff very well. So it was a smooth transition for me. I remember receiving my first paycheck. It was a week's paycheck. And I reported that I had started my job, and I was now getting paid. And guess what? I was told, you're not eligible for all these services. I remember sitting at a kitchen table. My son was playing with his school bus and a truck on the carpet. And I looked at the paycheck, a week's paycheck, and I had to decide what I was going to cover first, if I was going to pay rent with that, or, I'm sorry, I'm smiling through this because it's really, I had to choose between paying rent, daycare, transportation with the first week's paycheck. And I just couldn't do it. But then I also couldn't say no to the job because I needed to keep working. Yeah.
Peace, you experienced so much with a 3-year-old child as you came here, and he is 7 now. He's 7 years old. And you took that experience and, as you said, co-developed the Project Home Trust program, which is incredible. You really recognized what you went through and that it could be different, and continue to do that work. So thank you for sharing that with us. Allison, always more challenging to talk with a child cuddled in your lap, but I think this demonstrates exactly all of the things that you've juggled. I'm hoping you can tell us about what your life was like at the time that Project Home and Project Home Trust became a reality for you. Where were you, and how did it change your life and your daughter's life?
Yeah, we really roll with the punches. Life at the time looked like I had just moved into a new apartment from completing the women's program. I had a whole new set of bills. I had a whole new set of responsibilities. I was working. I still wanted to continue my degree at SMCC. I had just about a year left, almost to the month. And during that time, too, for my graduation, I needed to complete 2 internships unpaid. And it really kind of seemed like I was not going to be able to finish my degree. I was balancing whether I wanted to pick up more hours and put school to the side. The timing couldn't have been more perfect because I was able to complete my degree, graduate, enter the career of my choice, and it just really unlocked a whole lot more opportunity during the entire course of that year for me as a person to just grow professionally and personally.
Thanks, Allison. And I know that you had referenced in conversation that you were really at a point where you were considering that you wouldn't have been able to stay in school if Project Home Trust had not happened.
That is absolutely right. I would have had to have dropped out.
Yeah, with just a year left. Allison, also I'm wondering, could you share with us a time looking back when the $1,000 direct cash assistance per month really stands out to you that it made a difference?
Yeah, the entirety of the year being perfect, lining up to my semester, was really a perfect point. But one specific month, I had taken my car in for some diagnostics and to just kind of get an idea for the inspection that was coming up. And I brought it in the springtime, and my rocker panels were rusted out and needed to be repaired in the same month that my registration was also due, and I would not pass inspection unless if I had those rocker panels repaired. So I was able to kind of start putting some money aside, and I talked to someone with TANF, and they'd offered assistance with the repair, and that didn't come through. So I was left to foot the entire bill for my rocker panels between $800 and $900, and had to get the registration covered. But with the money that I was able to save up, that I had anticipated spending on the repair, I was able to rent a car, which meant that life didn't have to stop for me during the entire week that my car was in the shop. I was still able to take Morgan up to her daycare out in Westbrook, and then go all the way to South Portland for work and school, pick her up back in Westbrook, and then return back home to Portland by the end of the night, every night.
And Allison, I just have one other question that I'm wondering if you can share with us. Again, this comes from previous conversation, but we know that money helps us buy things we need, food, paying rent. Could you share a little more about what else money through and direct cash assistance has meant to you and your daughter?
It really bought us time. At the end of the day, I was able to come home and spend time with Morgan and watch her reach those developmental milestones instead of being distracted with paying the bills, how am I gonna make ends meet, what hours can I cut here, what hours do I need to add here. And it was just really this beautiful chance to watch her learn and count and to learn her ABCs, and we got to do that because we sat down and we practiced together. And I could really just be more present in the moment, and it's really strengthened our bond. And she's just this brilliant little girl, and it's because we've really had the gift of that time.
Yes, thank you so much. Zainab, hello, and you shared a little bit about us in your initial introduction. One thing that I do want to mention is that Zainab was part of Project Home Trust for Project Home for the past year, assistance with housing, but she was part of the control group, so she was not a recipient of the direct cash assistance. And the good news is she is part of the incoming cohort for 2024. So starting in a month, she will be part of Project Home Trust. But Zainab, to start with, could you just share a little more with us about the contrast between your life before you came to Maine and what the transition was like in coming here?
Of course. I love my country and I love my old life, but all of us have private things happen before. I live an unsafe situation. Sorry for my English have just 1 year and 10 months. So I will do my best. I arrived here looking for a safe place and to give my kids what I didn't have, offer my kids a better life, see my kids' success and have job in their success, not just study, no, to be someone in the future. I begin to thank peace. I'm sorry, I know you don't like to talk about it. When I arrive, I stay in the hotel and I have a small amount of money. I save little money to have my place. Then I didn't know how we can have home. I go to the reception every morning, and one day I meet someone speak French. I was looking for someone speak Arabic or French, so I meet someone speak French. I told him my history, and I asked him to help me where I supposed to begin. So he bring me to Gateway. She was working there. And I was afraid to stay with this man because this man proposed me to stay in his house, and I don't have any more money. And I have 2 kids. I'm a young person. I was very afraid. So I talked to someone called Kamar. I don't know if she's here. I saw her somewhere. I told her, I'm afraid and I'm not feeling safe. I don't want to go back and sleep in his home. She explained to Peace, and Peace tell me, I will receive you on my place, but you're supposed to know I have just 1 room, 1 bedroom, and I have my son. So you will sleep you and your kids on my living room. I say, okay, no problem, even at the floor. I don't have a problem, but I need to be safe. So in the same hour, they go with me to South Portland. We bring my clothes and everything, and I stay in her home for 46 days. And she's the one who she connect me with house, with GA, with many things. And that way I say she's my point of beginning, and thank you, every day, thank you.
That's very incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Zainab, and thank you, Peace, for spreading the care of others in so many ways. Zainab, can you share a little more about some of the dehumanization that you've experienced? I know that you've expressed a great sense of gratitude for the help that you've been able to receive since you came to Maine, but there have also been some challenging times. Your children really had a change in lifestyle that was very significant. I should say Zainab did not mention this, but Zainab has a PhD in French. She was a head of school for a French school for 13 years preceding her move to Maine. And so this was an extremely tumultuous time. Could you share a little bit about a choice that you had to make and what the consequences were that you experienced surrounding your daughter?
Can you explain more?
Could you share the story about when you made a decision to purchase something that your daughter had been asking for a very long time?
Okay. I don't like this part. Okay, like everybody, when we apply for our asylum, we have a general assistant. They help us for many months before having our work permit and begin to work and take care of ourselves. And in this time, at the 5th month in March, I didn't have any dollar in my pocket. And my daughter repeat every time when I go and buy things, I want ice cream. And every time my answer is, I don't have money. In the card of EBT, there is a part cash money and part for non-food. So I take my decision to use this card, cash money, and I bring ice cream for my daughter. I don't remember exactly, but maybe $7, something like this. And I keep the receipt. When I go to GA, I present everything. The person who she received me, she began to scream on me, talk to me badly. I'm a mother. I just did what any mother can do for her kids. But there is a kid's need. I didn't use this money for personal thing, no.
Thank you, Zainab. As Victoria said,
Sorry.
feeling Yes.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Till today, there's something it's the best way to explain what I felt. Like I feel it now. Knife here. And it's not easy. And I didn't lost my time without doing anything. I gave to Maine too. I gave 310 hours of volunteering. And I keep going, I keep doing, till now, even if I'm an employee. Thank you.
Melissa, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about the perspective you have. You work for the City of Portland in the office, the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, but you have your own personal story as well. And I'm wondering if you can share that and the way that your own story, your work today, and the work of Project Home Trust intersect.
Yeah, sure. So I would be taking the perspective of the child in this situation, right? My mother immigrated here in the 90s. She came with my brother and I, and she became a single mother very soon. We immigrated to North Carolina from Côte d'Ivoire. She knew very limited English and still lived under the thumb of a strong patriarchy at that time. When immigration happens, from the perspective of the child, you tend to grow up very, very quickly. You understand systems quickly, more quickly than the adults. You understand the nuances of racism or discrimination more quickly than the adults. And then you have a curious brain where you're asking why, in this situation, someone is being rude without understanding, what's going on. When we moved here, my mother had 3 simple rules, and they were, you come to America, you learn English, you work, and you get an education. She did not want to be on general assistance. She had a strong belief that it was a negative feedback loop. It was a trap. So what she would explain to us is the system is created to keep you inside of the system. Once you get very comfortable, you make enough money to leave, but then the discomfort happens, so you have to stay. So you're trapped. If you stay, there's no economic mobility for you, so the rest of your life, you're limited. Avoid the trap as much as possible. But unbeknownst to her, she had to work, and she didn't understand how harshly or hard she would have to work in America as a single mother. She worked 3 jobs to stay away from the trap. She lost time with all of her kids. She didn't have access to babysitters. She didn't have access to hopes and dreams. She worked labor jobs, 3rd shift at McDonald's, manufacturing jobs here and there. She would call in to us from 9, 3, and 6, and that would be our babysitter, right? Those phone calls, we would wait. And I could only imagine the panic when we didn't pick up the phone, what was going through her mind. By 8, I had tasks. I would pick up my sister from pre-K when she was being dropped off by my uncle, and then I would open the door for my brother. And she would always say, only open the door for your brother. There was this one time where I did not open the door for my brother. I opened the door for the mailman, and he sat there and he said, little girl, never open the door to me again. And I said, okay. When I didn't open the door, my brother would have to jump through the back and crawl in through the back window and make sure that everything in the house was okay. These were her safety measures to make sure that her kids were taken care of. I look at Project Home Trust as an opportunity that she probably missed out on. It rides the fine line between self-sufficiency and codependency. It lets you have the ability to dream in a way that our general assistance and our welfare doesn't happen today. What she probably would have done with that money is save it for education. She was a strong, business-minded woman, and she had dreams and hopes of opening her own business, which she never got the opportunity to do today. I, from the perspective of the child, received an inside scoop on the problems within the American systems when it comes to how we engage with communities that are different from us, when it comes to how we engage with accents that we hear that are new to us. She saw her accent as a handicap, and I saw her accent as a badge of honor because it told the story of where she was from. But the rest of America didn't see it as such. She would receive lower level jobs because of her accent, though she was absolutely a genius. She would receive lower level jobs because she was a woman and didn't know how to advocate for herself. She didn't know her resources enough. She would be at the mercy in the hands of people who are either willing or unwilling to help her. She didn't understand the scope of racism to the degree that it was in the South at that time. And we did. We understood racism in the healthcare sector, civic engagement. When she was looking for immigration attorneys, we understood exploitation at a very young age, and we can still speak to that today. So in my current role, I am hell-bent, to break these systems and find ways that people are out there creating opportunities for people like my mother. And I use her as my marker because if you're able to create an opportunity for, my mother's name is Angela, it's Angel with an E, so that means angel with an E. If you're able to create an opportunity for her, we could probably create more opportunity for more underrepresented communities who don't have the voices, the tools, or the opportunities to fight for themselves.
Melissa, this is an incredible perspective, your perspective as you were as a child and your mom's choices, your work now. Could you just also give us the perspective of what it's like to be an adult child, of your mother who has had this particular experience as someone who hasn't believed that she should take assistance, that it would limit her opportunities?
Yeah, so there is this thing in the culture called the immigration tax. If you're an immigrant child, you know that far too well. America has created systems where adults can age and be separate from their children as they age financially. That doesn't happen with majority of immigrants coming. So when your parents are starved of economic resources, they are starved of things like a 401k, a retirement income, the ability to have a budget or a financial understanding, or how to financially leverage the resources that they already have. And that becomes the responsibility of the child. So we grow up very quickly, but in return, we become parents just as fast. The parents tend to work more industrial and labor jobs, so their retirement age should technically be quickly because their body can't handle it. So we become the financiers, we become the retirement income, we become the 401k. And it's something that we take in with pride, but at the same time, it creates this generational handicap for immigrant children, where they're building homes of their own while trying to maintain their parents' homes at the same time at a very young age. And it's a tricky thing to compete with when the American systems or people who aren't suffering from this generational handicap have that bird's eye view and have that autonomy financially to create homes on their own without being burdened by the troubles of their parents early on. And I think what would happen if my mom did have the ability to understand what her 401k was, what her benefits were, how to leverage herself in systems, and how financially responsible or well set she would be. Thanks to her, she helped put 3 kids through school who have done very well. My sister works in sports, so she has the fun job, and my brother works in corporate, so he has the, or button-up job. And we all are her pot of money. We all take care of her. We all pay for things without question. We all are her financial dependency. But in comparison to how things work here, we understand that to be a very strong handicap with our own progression.
Thank you. I want to thank each one of you for sharing stories that are deeply personal, but so important for us to understand as we demystify and really understand what direct cash assistance actually means. And the idea that this is the kind of assistance that can actually really alter and change a person's life, afford opportunity, give dreams, and as Victoria said, actualize goals. So thank you so much to every one of you. Thank you, Victoria, and all the incredible staff of QHC.
I would like to ask our panelists, our amazing panelists, to stand. And would you all stand and applaud our panelists today? Have a seat for just a few more minutes. That was incredible. Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing your stories of struggle, of your resilience, of your bravery. Thank you, Sarah, for moderating this panel, bringing this to life. An hour ago, I asked you all to think about someone in your life who may have needed a program like this. Can I see a show of hands of folks who did identify someone in your life who could use something like this? Yeah, quite a few. As we know, this work really matters. You heard it today from our panelists. We have many more people applying to this program than we can actually accept. We know that there are 65,000 households that are experiencing poverty and housing insecurity in Maine, and we have a program of 20. So what can we do? We know that change cannot happen just by the voices crying out of those who actually need the change, right? We actually have to make the change as a community together. So there are 3 things that we can do here today. You can do all of them. You can do one of them. The first thing is we are launching a campaign to double the impact that we're having with Project Home Trust in 2025 and 2026. This work does matter, and we want to bring it to 40 women, single mothers, in our Maine communities. That's an investment of $12,000 per mom. So it's a big investment, and we're really hoping that you all think about donating to our program for that. There are QR codes on the agenda if anyone's interested in donating tonight, or you can come and see me or Dan Black, our CFO. All of the funding goes to supporting moms like Zainab, like Allison, and like Peace. And you heard their stories tonight. They were very powerful. The second thing that you can do, be curious. Be curious about these systems. There might be acronyms that you heard tonight that you've never heard before, or you may know a lot about them. Do some research. Talk to folks in your community about them. Ask your elected officials. Ask your city, town, and county managers, what are we doing to challenge, to solve the benefits cliff? What are we doing to help people to lift them out of poverty? Engage in those conversations. And the third thing that I'd like you to do is, if you have an index card and a pen, can you pull it out? And I want you to think about all the things that you heard tonight, all the stories that you heard, and think about the people in your life Write down 2 or 3 people in your life that you want to share what you learned about tonight with. Like I said at the beginning, we're recording this, and so this will be available for you all to share with others. Again, everybody in our community needs to stay curious about what we can do together, and I encourage everyone that if you hear an answer, it's the way we've always done things, or I'm not sure if we can change that. Be courageous and challenge that. So we're going to end our program tonight. I want to thank you all very much, and a specific thank you to every one of our panelists today and to Sarah Gideon. There's more food, there's more drink, so let's gather together and talk a little bit more. Thanks again.